listening live to Xtreme TV, a new show here from myself, Rob, and my guest this evening, the real Dr. V. Good evening, sir.
How's it going?
It's going good. Tonight we're going to be talking about Lost in Space, the Netflix reboot, reimaging, regurgitation, whatever anybody who may allegedly be a fan of the show like to think of it as. Here on Extreme TV, we're starting to branch out a little bit from the Extreme Movie Show, which is our headquarters. You know, me and Eglantine from I Love Comics, the homegrown tourist, Old Man Comics, created it to cover movies and things that we liked. And we like to talk a little bit about TV, so we're starting to do that. And for here, what better way than jump into the biggest garbage pile of them all, Netflix, and talk about one of their shows that allegedly is very, very popular, Lost in Space. So, Doctor, I got to tell you, growing up as a kid, I was aware of Lost in Space. I will confess it may have been on in the household a time or two, but it was not what I would call like an active watch. So let me ask you, did you ever watch the original TV show?
I saw maybe one episode and it was so hokey I couldn't even get through that most of it. So I couldn't tell you what's different from this one. I'm assuming though that this series is different just the fact that they have they're not lost. There's so many other people with them. Where in the I guess the original series it was just the Robinsons and Dr. Smiths and the robot. So I'm assuming that is the case because Netflix has or a lot of these reboots have like well, we're going to change it greatly, and it seems like they might have done this too purposely because they're trying to be like Disney almost. You
Well, I
know,
think you bring up a good point, and that's it's kind of why I wanted to go in order, but a little bit about the show, just to kind of give a little bit of backdrop for the younger people in our audience or some of the people that are faithful fans of the original series. And to me, I don't necessarily have an issue if somebody takes something, puts a new spin on it, does their own thing, they try to re-image it. You could have the argument that if you take an older product or that sucks and make it something totally different, or if it's really, really good, try to take the good elements and branch off. I get it, it's derivative. That's what most things are these days. So it doesn't offend me. And I know that some people have complained about the Netflix reboot because there's a lot of major changes, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But for me, I didn't even really watch the movie. I think it was in the late 90s, 97, 98. And a couple people that I knew who liked the TV show really, really thought the movie was good. And so to me, I'm coming into this cold. Season one, which we'll talk about, and then season two, which is currently just dropped on Netflix a few weeks ago. I just want to talk about some of the themes about it because people that were not fans of the show originally, and this is a fresh watch, this may be their baseline, and there's nothing wrong with that. So overall, Netflix has what I consider to be a lot of garbage. They're throwing a lot of money around to get a lot of content. That's business wise what they need to do. Obviously, everyone likes to think of this time as the streaming wars. So I realize that when you're throwing a lot of money at stuff, the quality may not be very high. That's okay. On the Extreme Movie Show, we talk about movies that aren't necessarily what we might call a cinematographic masterpiece, but if it's entertaining or there's things about it we like, that's what we like to talk about. And I know that a lot of our fans mention certain things about it. So I was excited when this came out because I said, you know what? I know it's going to be campy sci-fi. I know it's going to have a different cast. I know it's shot in Vancouver like 90% of everything else. Okay, that's cool. But I was hooked because it had my man in there, Toby Stevens. And I'd been a big fan of his going back to James Bond, where he played in Die Another Day, one of the main bad guys. Now, I assume you saw that James Bond movie, yes?
Die Another Day. Yes, he was the main villain, wasn't he?
Well, before,
He was a rich guy.
yeah, before things changed for like that. He's what I call the sneer guy because when I saw the movie at the time in early 2000s, Toby Stevens really hadn't necessarily done a lot of print work. He wasn't a big household name. I thought, damn, this guy's got a great little just punchable, not douchebag face, but just that sneer was fantastic. I thought he was a very solid character. Now, the movie itself, I was not a big fan of. And while we've covered the James Bond entire canon on the Extreme Movie Show, which we will be revisiting shortly, especially with the new movie coming out, I will say that obviously I've not been a big fan of the Bond movies since after Dalton for the most part in general, and especially this movie. So the bright spot to me was Toby Stevens. Fast forward a few years, he's in a show called Black Sails, which is about pirates, and it's just a very watchable, very detail oriented type of pirate show. It's like an adult pirate show that does not dumb its material down and be kiddish, and I respect the fact that it was in there. So when I started watching something, I was hooked. I had to pay attention, a lot of stuff going on, and Toby Stevens is one of the main characters in it. He's a phenomenal actor. So here we got a British guy. He's a sneer boss and a Bond villain. Then he's just a badass captain. This is like 20 years before the pirates took over, and you had Treasure Island. So it's kind of loosely based around the mid to late 1700s time frame. So I'm just all over Toby Stevens. I'm like, yes, he's going to be the main captain. They're going to do whatever. I don't care. So I don't care if the Doctor was originally a man and is now a woman. I don't care if they've got extra kids in the role. I didn't care. I just want to see Toby Stevens literally pilot through this thing and be an episodic, kind of campy little bit of sci-fi. And I don't know, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm still waiting to
Well,
see that. So for season one, what were your thoughts?
season one, I can't, dude. I honestly can't remember season one really as much, and it's the fact that they got lost, and then they were somehow able to like find their group back with their people. They built bonds. Yes, it's territories. As far as between the families, like at all costs, no matter what, they're gonna do what they can. Marine, his wife in the series, she's gonna do what she can to keep her family safe. She even makes that deal with somebody she doesn't even know, trades away her access security codes to the just so Will can her son can get onto the ship because she wanted them all to be together.
Hmm.
I mean, even him and Toby and all his character, John Robinson, the very last minute he was able to sneak on board. You know, um, it was just basically. Like I said, I've never seen the original show, but I thought it had a decent first season. I mean, I do love the fact that they actually gave Parker Posey the role of playing Dr. Smith, or whatever her name originally is in the series, but she has the look, and dude, as you see her through you progress through the first season and the second season, she is conniving. She's able to get away with stuff, mainly because the Robinsons are too trusting or naive, and that's kind of a down part on their part. But uh, she's a villain. She's a character you kind of like you get mad at her because like she's able to do this. No matter what you do, she always finds a way to self preserve herself. Um, and the fact that and they brought in John West. I guess John West was in the original series as well too. I'm assuming
Well, I
this,
mean,
but
there's definitely, I know a lot of Twitterverse everywhere else, people complaining about, like I say, changes and stuff there too. So it sounds like you're kind of
yeah.
like me with not having seen the show. You're pretty open to whatever changes were going to be made in the series.
Well, definitely the robots are big improvements. The
Yeah, I
other
do
one was
want to
just
talk about the robot a little bit, kind of separately, but in general, let me throw this at you and see what you think. Junebug Films has joined us. Good evening, sir. Toby Stevens' dad was a very good actor, Robert Stevens. Um, Junebug says here in comments, and it's something that I feel needs to be addressed because that's at the crux of the show, and just things in general these days, but very explicitly with Netflix. Um, Junebug saying he's a huge fan of the original series, and they took unnecessarily PC stuff with it, and I totally agree. And that was the whole thing why I gave Toby Stevens this big build up, because you don't have to be the dude bro, alpha male, like all these kind of terms, and be a punk guy. You had a bunch of smart people in the family, borderline geniuses. Okay, that's cool. Is it realistic? I can let that go. But the problem with this is that, and I didn't realize at the time, Toby Stevens apparently was so drawn to being a part of the show, allegedly, because he said, you know what? I had played this tough guy, in a pirate series, and now I get to play somebody as a male, a totally different character that could be emotionally supportive. He says was such a big change for me. I decided to take on that challenge. And you know what? That's all well and fine. I get it. I understand it. And you know what? You sign on for stuff. You're an actor. You didn't write it, so you just do kind of what you can do with the material given to you. So I just think overall, with the first episode, you're right. There's a nice little hook. There's some themes that you're like, wow, she's kind of a villainess, even though it's supposed to be he. Who cares? It's Ali Sheedy resting bitch face to me is what she looks like. But if you leave that aside and you don't
Yeah,
know, it's a really neat little kind of not who
and
done it, but you're interested at least a little bit.
when they got attacked originally, or that problem in the she was trying to hide from the escape, from Dr. Smith
Hmm.
or the lady. She locked that guy in the airlock. He's pleading with her and all this stuff and all, and you just felt so bad for this guy, and and you see she's kind of hesitating and stuff. And as the first season goes by, you get to see more and more of her, who she is, what she's on. They continue this in the flashbacks in the second season as well. You can see more about who she is and why she does the things she does. But I mean, that guy, man, like I'm thinking, like he's like pleading with her. He's like, dude, I have a daughter, and all. Like, I have a family, and it's like, please don't do this to me. Like, I won't say anything. And she just lets him go. She opens the airlock and kills him because she's so selfish. She's so concerned. Like, well, she only relies on herself. You know. So that part right there was just like, man, that's what I want from someone who is cold, heartless, and a villain. But it's because because in the moment they're like is she gonna she hesitates and you're like, well, like she's gonna let him out, but then she's like, nope. Then she kills him, like invents him, and like so then yeah, when it's I said like when they get how the whatever happened, I forgot what happened, but somehow the ship got damaged they're on, so they had to go down to the planets and stuff.
Well, what
She
you're
went to
talking about is 90% of what's missing in this entire show, and that's character. And I've always said that you can have a crappy or non-existent story, kind of like I've been bagging on Joker lately not being a good film. You can, but if you don't know at least a little about people or put everybody in a situation and then learn from them how they respond to things, which we do here early on, you find yourself in about episode two or three going, why do I give, as a viewer, I'm going, why do I give a rat's ass about any of these characters? Who am I emotionally invested in? Who do I find curious? Who kind of annoys me? Who's, this? What story arc am I going to want to pay attention to the most? And the problem also starting this off, at least on an adult kind of line with what you're saying, is you could argue that, self-preservation, she made the decision, maybe she'd deal with the regret later. You could say she made a snap decision. I get it that they show flashbacks, whatever, but when the whole family, is you start seeing all of them going through their different situations and all that, you just say to yourself, okay, forget the physics, forget the science, forget the engineering, forget all those kinds of things. Is the show supposed to be like this little slightly more adultish, at least teen or young adult drama with the science backdrop, which would be kind of cool? Or is it supposed to be like the original TV show, that's very campy and episodic each episode where it doesn't get too deep, but it's very tight and there's a little science thing behind each one that serves as the structure for them to get out of it. And then and to me, Netflix has never decided what they want to do with that. I don't think Netflix, like a lot of people that we've talked about with movies these days, care about the quality because it's a product. And I don't have a problem with that. I've said that since day one. But to me, that's very inconsistent. Obviously, Netflix is shelling out a lot of money, so a lot of people are just getting them, telling them what they think it's going to be. They slap something together, boom. And I know it was real popular for a little bit as far as downloads, but at some point, Netflix is going to have to shed a lot of money and their stock's going to take a dump, and they're going to have to figure out the quality stuff is what's going to keep people. And the issue I have is you just described for about 5 minutes what you remember from the first season, basically, and that's
well,
almost all I remember, too.
I remember more too. I mean, I remember that the very first episode when they have to rescue Judy from on the ice and stuff like that, and not Judy, no, it was the other one, the other daughter. Uh, Forget her name is offhand. I was just watching the show too.
But
Um,
that illustrates my point right there is that we don't necessarily hate the characters. We don't necessarily think they're stupid. We know they're supposed to be smart. We know they're supposed to be young. We know that there's family dynamics involved, and yet here all we are is talking about is the robot, which I want you to really talk about this because I know off air we talked about the
well,
robot a bit. This
well,
is the only thing that looks cool, that seems like it's done differently, where it's intriguing, and we don't care about the family. We just care about the robot, and that is a
I
very
don't.
bad sign that that's the positive part about this show.
Well, as far as a robot, compared to the first season and the second season, it's a totally different story opinion as far as that. first season, it comes across Will comes across the robot. The robot's injured, and he kind of it doesn't trust him at first. He kind of and they finally form a trusted bond because they're both lost. You see that the hate over the time the robot learns to trust humans around more time, and it's basically a boyish robot. That's what it is. He finds it,
Hmm.
and everyone's afraid of it first, and then they kind of come to accept it. Like, hey, that this he actually is what he is. This is robot actually wants to help. Uh, but and then you come across a problem where it's the fact, well, whenever there's something like a good technology or anything like that, there's always someone who wants to take advantage of it. And that's Dr. Smith. She wanted to use the robot, so she basically manipulated the robot, thinking that Will doesn't care about you, he doesn't want your friend, he's just using you. I'll be your friend, I care about you and stuff. And so I mean, and then you get the problem with the people who were also when they meet up everybody else, I think skipping the ice planet, and they meet up everybody else on the so and now the other colors they're like, dude, like this is the as soon as they recognize that they see the robot because a whole apparently a swarm of those robots would attack their main ship, and that's why pretty much why everybody evacuated at first. So they wanted to destroy it and stuff, and she has it's just the Robinson. It's just one thing after another. Is for that. The whole main key with this series is the fact that they're all civilians, but even the security guards, all they carry is stun batons. They don't carry any guns.
Hmm.
They don't because they're really cool. We don't can't use guns in our no Earth, because that's why we're leaving our Earth. Because well, blah blah blah. It's like you still need to defend yourself. If there's freaking giant robots or any aliens, how do you protect yourself? You don't even have shields. It's like have force shields or nothing. So I'm like, well, they figure, well, we're just gonna spend like they said like it was like a $40 million each of those ships they're on
Hmm.
the Jupiters. They're like $40 million. That's what the kid said in the season two. Um, But yeah, I mean, I like the fact that he bonded the robot and stuff, and I like the fact the robot, well, dude, he looks pretty. Even though it's kind of CG, you can tell when they get and when it's walking upright, humanized form,
Hmm.
it's actually a guy in a suit a little bit. They kind of touch it up so you don't really see it as much.
It's a
It's basically
great
like a
look,
RoboCop.
isn't it?
It's like
I mean, it
RoboCop,
looks
don't you not?
fantastic to me. I think it's
Don't
visually very appealing and
don't you
mysterious, which I like. So every time he's there with
that
the kid, like you said, imprinting with him like a dog, I'm really curious. I want to watch that, you know?
they do bring the robot back in season two towards the middle because he's still missing.
Well,
In the
let's
very
hold off on season two for a moment and still talk a little bit about season one
but,
there too. Yeah.
yeah, season one was pretty good. I mean, I watched it within like a couple days. I was house sitting for my sister while she was out at Disney, like so I was stuck out there. Like we had our little mini snowstorm in the middle of April. So so I was like, what do I watch? Do I watch Roseanne or do I watch this? So I turned this on Netflix. I started watching this. I binge watched. It was I think it was like 10 episodes or eight, all within like a couple days. You know,
Well, let's talk about well, I'll go ahead and I'll talk a little bit about what I liked about it, and then of course the elephant in the room, the soy boy PC nonsense crap that this really is. Um, Production values, I thought, we'd reviewed The Witcher and we talked about how some of the scenes look fantastic and others looked really bad, that it's kind of very uneven with the editing and whatnot too. And, maybe in season two of The Witcher, they'll be able to be a bit more efficient with the use of their money as far as all that goes. So, as an idea for Lost in Space, I thought visually it looks very good. I certainly again don't mind an upgrade with it. I don't care that the science isn't particularly in depth. I dislike the fact that I don't really have an emotional attachment to any of these characters, and I have no problems with a strong, independent woman or young woman that's in a field and all that too. I have a major science background, professionally speaking, so I appreciate seeing that. I'm a little bit of a geek and a nerd for that. So the problem I have, of course, goes back to Toby Stevens and the fact that while they kind of dance around the subject of why Earth is overpopulated, I'm going to go back and mention for the newer listeners the fact that we occasionally cover on the Xtreme Sci-Fi show some older shows, and one of them was a Charlton Heston film called Soylent Green, which, the spoiler is that Earth's population is really, really big, so all the people that die, that's what they make food out of. It's kind of like turn of the century in the 1900s, when most of the horses weren't used anymore, they were killed and made into dog food and all that stuff, kind of like just a human thing. But all that 50s and 60s sci-fi nonsense, like Godzilla from the nuclear war, and in the 50s and 60s about an overpopulation boom, and it's man being the cause of everything. You can get political and talk about how it's got socialist ties and all this other kind of stuff. Then it made its way to literature and it's wonderfully disguised. I even try to ignore that because, again, it's interesting. Sci-fi can be a great vehicle to explore certain things. TN Channel's talking about the original Star Trek, and of course they have a prime directive which they always violate. They don't have any money, so I go, well, that's going to change human nature a little bit when you have nothing to do, and of course they don't address that. They're a bit too idealistic rather than how human nature is affected. And the problem in here is with Toby Stevens. God rest his soul. If he doesn't do anything more again, I give him a lot of credit for his acting ability because, like I say, he goes from this tough guy, sneering, pirate captain, he seems smart, different accents, to basically everything a man should not be, period, that you see on film. And any young kid watching this, I would be embarrassed if my son thought that this was a legitimate male role model because it's not that he's not trying to be supportive or he doesn't show his emotional side with the kids and all that. That's cool. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem really is he's to me just so obviously there as a foil because resting bitch face wife just cannot shut the hell up, and I want her to die. I want her to die in the most violent way manner, or just disappear from the screen and never show up again, and let it be about them. Because I would look at that and go, any guy that would allow a woman like that to talk to him and treat him that way and just have such obvious disrespect and zero chemistry on screen and passion for, it's disgusting to watch. It's a distraction from anything that this show is trying to do, whether it's working or not, or whether we like this angle or this character or this situation or the robot only. It's unwatchable because of her. And I'm not saying she's a bad actress. It's just, it is so blatant in your face, like most of the stuff on Netflix, that it just makes this not watchable. And yet I find myself saying, like some of the few shows that we've talked about, there's something here. I wish they would trim it up, but I think that they don't care to do it. They're just happy to have this kind of little situation where we can show guys being effectively useless, no guns at all, and the women are all powerhouses and can do no wrong and just act any way they want and empowered. And it's just, it's disgusting. It makes me just want to watch the robot walk around with the little kid and, go pick berries and do science experiments. I mean, that's it. I don't
Well,
know.
the very first season was basically them just they're stuck on a they get off the ice planet. They were stuck on the other planet because they had no fuel. That was the whole thing. They're trying to get it back to the Resolute, their main ship. That was the very first season. In Toby's defense, he's playing a Navy SEAL. That's what he is. He's not a scientist like everybody else. He's the other scientist. He's the only guy there who knows how to fight.
Hmm.
You're in a situation where you don't need to fight, unless somebody's going to try and board your ship, like that. Then you have to, but you see him. He becomes more useful in season two. When there's more stuff where he actually does he takes out a whole room of guys with baton stuff, and he's able to free the robot. So I mean, yeah, he's not completely useless, yes. But yes, him being the only one there, is not as smart as the other one. It didn't really bother me. Um, just the fact that he wants to be there for his family. That's mean like how often do you see him? A lot of guys where they're like, you know what, I don't care. Like, there's a lot of deadbeats.
Yeah,
It's
at
Russian.
least it's not a single mom episode, which, a lot
Yeah,
of stuff is too. So I'll agree with you on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I've seen that a lot. There's no father figure whatsoever. You find out that obviously in the first season, that Judy's not his daughter. Judy is his stepdaughter because he's his wife. Uh, she already had Judy with her previous ex husband who was an astronaut who went missing 20 years before that. She meets him, and that's she has Penny and Will are his children. So
Yeah, and so we'll get ready to talk
and
about season two
what,
here
what's
just a little bit. Go ahead.
what's cool about season two is the fact that we learn that Penny, she's just like her father, whose name's Stella. She's not smart. She's more
Didn't the
getting into
mom
trouble
help
and
her
stuff.
cheat to pass the exams to get in or something like that in the first season? Seriously?
Uh,
I
no, I know. No, it wasn't that. She helped Will.
okay, okay.
Yeah, because Will didn't pass. but see, Will proved out to be more valuable than the rest of them because well, he has him dealing with the robot and having a more of a bigger heart, where the other ones are just kind of like looking older, like they're like kill it. So if they wouldn't have got the robot, in the first season, like we would have helped him out. Will would have got lost. They never would have saved Judy. Judy would have drawn in the ice. She would have froze to death.
Yeah, I'm
At least,
not even talking about specific, plot devices in some of the
yeah.
episodes.
And it's convenient, yes, but
Yeah,
I I do like this. Like I said, I love the robot. I mean, I like Will in all minutes. Will also being the first thing to be cool is the fact he was being he Smith, where she's trying to manipulate him. I thought that was pretty cool. That's they're playing that angle. Um, and then, like I said, Parker Posey continues to be a threat even in season two. She, even though you see there's more flashbacks about her. There's even more flashbacks with Judy as far as uh John and her, and how she kind of resents him, based because the fact that he's at the time when they're on Earth, he was always going on missions or going fighting somewhere else because he was a Navy SEAL. He had to do what the president said. He had to go. He was in the service. You know, so she
you knew
resented
what you're
him not
marrying
being there.
into. I mean, come on, he had an astronaut
Yeah, yeah,
ex-husband. I mean, come
well,
on.
yeah, well, yeah. The wife wasn't upset. It was more Judy. The fact, she was, because she's the oldest. She was 19, ready to go to college and all that stuff. She's upset because she already lost one father. She didn't want to lose another one. It's like, she couldn't take it.
Yeah, so
Uh
in season two, those are the kinds of things that I mentioned. I felt were for the most part lacking in season one. I don't mind them exploring it. I don't mind if it's a vehicle and it wants to be a soap opera. Personally, I just when I think of Netflix and I think of what they put out, most of it's questionable at best. Um, I, there's still something slightly watchable about it, even though I don't think this is a very good show. I think it's kind of rubbish, really. And maybe they changed some things in season two because honestly, I'm about 3, 4 episodes in. I know there's some stuff yet to come. I have not read up on it, or I've tried to avoid anything about it. I know some people said that they've watched it. Some people in chat said that they haven't. Um, so let me ask you this as far as that, because I know you've finished season two for it. Do you think that the second half of season two kind of makes up for the first half of season two, or in other words, is it on like an upward trend compared to how it started?
I'd say it's improving, and they're trying to figure out what more they want to do. They are incorporating more of use of the father, other than
Okay.
just being the guy, being the head of the table or whatever, round table, where they say that. um, yeah, it's the only thing I didn't like is at the very uh first part of the first episode. It's like, well, they're stuck on a planet again. They can't get out because they don't have power. It's like we went through this problem before. They had no fuel, so and they're on a so that and they was it I think it's the very second I think it was the second episode. They turned the ship into well, in order to leave, in order to get to they had to recharge their batteries. So they figured they see this lightning storm, and that's the only way they could recharge their using a kite.
Yeah,
They're gonna
they
use
do the
that.
Ben Franklin
Yeah,
thing without saying
yeah,
that or
yeah, yeah,
talking down the audience because they notice the
yeah,
periodicity
yeah.
and then the strikes and everything. See, stuff like that I like. I kind of geek out on that too. And I think that those are cool little elements that you can constantly recycle.
Yes. So there's episode two, and I think it goes into episode three as well. I'm not sure because I said, like, when I watch these seasons, like I watched like 6 episodes today, and they're all bleeding together to me.
Hmm.
It's um so yeah, they turn the ship into in the water, and then they turn it into like a boat. They create these sails, tarps, and it was, I think the tarps, they originally were their solar panels that they're using, and they basically use, like, was it algae or something like that, or some alien stuff, and they smeared it, make it look brown, so that way they could use it as a sail. So you just filled it up, otherwise, because it was like a cloth thing, whatever. Anyway, so
Details.
yeah, so 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 and they have to get there before there's like this storm hits, like, otherwise they will basically, like, be knocked off course, and they'll crash and drown because there's jagged rocks they have to go through. And meanwhile, this they have, like, Penny is being somewhat almost influenced by Dr. Smith, who's been locked away in his little cubicle room. She's only allowed to, like, go use the bathroom and then come back in there.
Hmm.
And you see how in there she's basically trying to teach herself how to fly the ship. she stole the flight navigator book and stuff and all, and she created like a mock thing of a cockpit in there, the controls. She memorized it, and so obviously right away you're seeing like, okay, now this woman, she doesn't care about them. She's well, first thing she's gonna get is like I saw at the end of season one. She wants to take control of the ship, fly away, go over to where she wants to go. Um, so but this thing when they finally get to the what was it to yeah to where the landing thing is,
Hmm.
it was crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like Pirates of the Caribbean, because like also in the middle of the ocean there, the lake, all of a sudden there, it stops and there's a cliff there, there's a waterfall, and they reveal it's like there's some alien ship down there. Like, no, that's what there's giant rods. So basically, I said like it was like once a year you get lightning a lightning storm comes and it charges all these things.
Like the
So
salmon of Capistrano swimming upstream. It's instinct.
yeah, yeah. So it's just so funny, and then the whole thing with the lightning rod, as far as because the thing falls over and like the girls get knocked over, they fall down to the first Penny gets swept away because she's trying to help Don, because Don was trying to clear the algae off the ship. The problem is the algae basically touches you, it's a paralytic and it'll kill you. It's toxin,
Hmm.
it just kills you. So she gets knocked over and all that crap, and then they have to. The mother goes over and has to save her, and so then well, she's down there, discovers all these alien symbols on there and stuff. They match kind of what they saw on a robot and stuff.
So it sounds like
Eventually,
there's a mystery there that they've got steps that you can see.
yeah, it's a mystery as far as like what's going on, and that comes back into play towards the end. Um, they actually go back to that planet. Will
Interesting.
does.
See, that's the
Um,
kind of stuff that I think does make for a good show because you can say, well, I don't like this character, but I like the situation they're in or the story or the big mystery behind it and whether they're connected or not. And so, to me, like I say, I think I'll say two things and then I'll ask you for your final analysis, your Richard Gere, as it were. Um, you mentioned earlier, actually, I think you said it twice, basically, it's really cool, with a boy and his robot. And I was thinking, okay, it's really like a dog with the imprinting and stuff. And, I mentioned earlier in Channel that the original Star Trek, there's some garbage in there, but there were some really great writers back then in the days because television scripts relied on people that were actual sci-fi writers for ideas and fleshing it out. And these days everything's kind of like a blur. And there's one story called A Boy and His Dog that was by Harlan Ellison, who died I think a few years ago. Um, it was a small movie that had Don Johnson in it before Don Johnson was really big. And really what it is, it's like a wasteland situation, and this guy would, I guess, go to the surface or below surface or something, and he had a dog that was his companion, and he meets somebody that's extremely rare, a female, and of course, finds the delights of the female, but it's a survival story and everything else there too, and food's a struggle. So towards the end, and the dog has a telepathic link with its master. It's just an emphasis of the owner, the master dog bond, if you will, which that's kind of neat. The girl's like, "Well, we're dying. Why don't we eat your dog?" And then the story basically ends with the guy basically saying, "Yeah, that was tasty," whatever like that. And then the dog like basically says, "Yes, master, let's go." And they walk off together, implying that they ate the girl. And I'm like, that's so bitter. That's awesome. That's so Harlan Ellison. Because if you know anything about Harlan Ellison, that's how he is. This show cannot decide if it wants to be adult like, because like you said, the beginning of season one and other things, you
mhm.
have some adult themes, or does it want to just be an adventure kind of lighthearted family story, which would be cool. But whenever you have basically, I think, more than one showrunner, like The Walking Dead after season one is pretty much shot, when you don't have that one singular vision that everybody helps put together on screen, you're going to end up with crap. It's why the new James Bond
Oh
is
yeah,
going to suck. It's why
too many
this
characters. Yeah.
this writing's going to suck. If one person was in charge of writing most of the scripts and everything else, they're implementing vision and not doing this group analysis like Warner Brothers using AI to sort through scripts to find which ones are the most PC and woke because they think that they can turn that into X amount of dollars. At some point, that's going to come back to bite them. And the art of writing a script and storytelling is not going to be very good. And I know that everybody on the Extreme Movie Show and the TV show and everything else that we do is really just interested in it, something that entertains them, whether it's good or not. And so to me, I will probably go ahead and watch the rest of season two. I think it's slightly better than season one, but honestly, that's really not that hard to do. So again, I don't think this is a good show. I'm not going to say don't watch it, but it's just typical Netflix rubbish for the most part. Although some of the things I know offend, some really hardcore believers in Lost in Space, that stuff doesn't offend me, so I don't mind that. With that, let me ask you for your final thoughts.
The way this ended, I'll just give a little thing is like, you talk about you want to see some more, if it, as far as there might be some more adult stuff. Well, uh, Judy's father might be alive.
Uh oh. I never would have saw that coming in all the soap operas that have ever been around. Is he Latin? Is
They
it going to be a
like
telenova?
like in order to escape away from the robots that will awoke, the kids flee with the alien drive thing because they warp the little portal thing wormhole, and instead of going to Al Centurion where they're supposed to go, they come across like this destroyed ship. And it was originally the ship that Judy's father 20 years ago went missing. Or I
Hmm.
guess.
The plot thickens.
So is he alive, or are they gonna find a skeleton in there? And I'm thinking like, please don't be on that thing where it's like she finds out that Judy's father is alive, and Marion's like she's got to choose between John, her new husband, and her old husband, who she's still technically married to because he's alive.
Please happen so they can get divorced. Please, please, please do it. Let him be like Kirk that finds a hot native alien woman and just, settle down with it. Or, very similar to what we covered in Treasure of the Sierra Madre on our Extreme Classics show, where you just go, you know what, I did a good thing. The universe is rewarding me for, a sacrifice, I mean,
but
yeah, it's just make characters that are
I
enjoyable. Gosh,
when I look at this movie or not no, or series, I compare it to the '90s movie with was it William Hurt
I don't
and
know.
the guy who played Joey on Friends.
Oh, God.
Yes, that movie. Yes, that
Oh.
Lost in Space movie. As far as well, him being like being John West's character, being almost he's somewhat like he was like yeah he's comedy relief in the show, and I love the fact that they've been there. He's a mechanic, and stuff. He knows how to fly the ship and all that stuff. But he's still a nice guy. It's like he's not overly this annoying. He's not it's like hey, I'm good looking. I'm Joey. It's like they approve that as far as doing that. But the guy's only like he's only 37 years old too. The guy plays Don in there. He's not that much. He's only a couple years older than I am.
It's the simple universal rule of supply and demand. He's there. There's a couple of age daughters. I haven't seen
Only
any
one's
obvious teasing of it yet. Well,
only one's 19. And that's Judy. Yes, the other
just saying.
Penny's like 17, and Will's like what? He's now like 14 now in this series.
Just
He's two, I
remember in
think.
space, the faster you go, the more time slows down. And that's true physics, baby.
And what's I thought about that too because like if the parents are stuck behind because they didn't use a warp drive, it takes them longer to get to where the kids are. The kids they can age the kids up, but then they have to like change the kids though, or maybe they just use the way they could just say the kids age older, and even though they appear the same. But it would look weird though, because like they can't do that angle with him like, hey, I'm gonna hit on Penny or Judy. It's like a good item. You know? it's I mean that was the route they tried to do with that 90s movie. Yeah, the 1998 Matt LeBlanc. Yeah, Matt LeBlanc was trying to like flirt with Judy, the oldest daughter, the girl from Party of Five.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hardcore survival or anything, but like I say, I think there's a seed here of what the original show was supposed to be, a lighthearted family, adventure thing, really, which is science as the backdrop, and that's cool. It doesn't have to be too deep. Um, Again, I'm not the writer, I'm not the one in charge of it, so all I can do is just comment on what I see with it. So I'm not going to tell people listening to this, oh, don't see it, it sucks. I don't think it's a very good show. I think the overall standard in the past 20 years or so has just been extremely, in decline. Not just Netflix, but really anything. Just Netflix is a convenient, or person to bash. I could do Disney just as well and everything else, but it is what it is. So with all the stuff that's out there to sort through, sometimes that's the hardest thing. And so I think when you actually settle on giving something a shot, it's just get me hooked, in a couple episodes, and no matter what kind of story, no matter what kind of setting, I still think it's characters, at least for me. And yeah, because right now I'm feeling a little bit lost in space. Lost on Netflix is probably what I should have titled this. Any other comments, Doctor, before we call it a night?
Not much. It's just like I said, like this. I'll just say this season two, I had its higher points better than in the first season, but the first season I binged through it more. I think maybe because I had no idea what I was getting into. Where this is kind of comparing to the first season, so I'm starting to notice more flaws.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like that and that. It's like so. It's not as bad as like or I Jessica Jones season three where I actually had to force myself to actually watch it. This I actually it wasn't that bad. So I mean I still like this. It's even though it's not as good as the first season. But yeah, check it out, man. Plus you get to see more of the cool stuff, like the Land Rover they use. I always like those things because I yeah, and I love the Jupiter. I mean, that I don't know why they don't make this a game. Leave all the Star Wars crap and let me fly the freaking Jupiter, or like or the Land Rover because I guess it was a Mass Effect too. It was a video game. You got to drive the even Mass Effect. It was even Mass Effect in Andromeda. You got to fly or the pilot the little rover like that, and it had like jetpacks on it. So you afterburner, so you could like do jumps off the ground with like a rocket boost, jet boosts. But
Well, all I know is that because it's been 2 seasons, they'll probably have a pretty good season three, actually, that might even be entertaining, and then it's going to get canceled because that's what Netflix does.
who knows? It might even get canceled now. Who knows?
It's true.
I,
That's true. It looks like it
that's
could be
just it's just the
expensive.
way that well the the scene here where Don's like going through the luggage because somebody asks her, like, "Hey, you still smuggling?" He's like, "Great." And he's like, I just realized there's no really currency, but he's like, "Well, hey, you give me this, I'll give you that." I'm like, sure, I'll just do. So he's looking over, he's like, cigar. He's going through the locker room, cigars. Like, sees like, no cigars here. He finally at the end he finds the cigars. He's like, and I'm thinking like, damn you, Netflix, he doesn't get smoke them.
I
he
know.
picks up the box, sniffs the box, and then he has to put it away because there's something alerts because some guards are coming and he has to do stuff. So they don't even. I'm like, if he does not light up a cigar next season, I'll be upset because like, ah,
I know. I'm telling you. Well, I'd like to say thanks for Junebug for jumping in. I don't know that I've recalled seeing you in these streams. If you have been, great. Keep listening. Welcome. T, good to see you as well. For the doctor, for myself, for Anglantine and Spirit, for Dalton the Authenticator, who does the occasional once every other month pop in. Stay extreme, guys. Thanks for listening. We should be on probably in a little bit for something here on Tuesday night. We'll see how that goes to be determined. Good night, everybody.